This is Fountain Pendulum. In this video, we're taking a look at the Sailor Dipton Hocoro set that comes with the Dipton Right Fig sheening ink and the Hocoro Dip Nib with a Fude nib in it. So it comes in this packaging. Everything is designed, in my opinion, most excellently. Great attention to detail. Lots of instructions and information on the inside. So these are designed as a set. The ink, which is sheening, is designed to be used exclusively with this Sailor Dip Nib, per the instructions. So taking a look, let's start by talking about this dip nib. These come in different colors. This one in the set came with clear with silver shimmer. Then we have inside the nib. So for storage, it is safely secured in here by clicking so that you won't damage the nib. And then to use it, you would unclick it, reverse it around, and click it into position to use it as a pen. The barrel itself has a flat ridge from here to here and from here to here. And on the back, a Sailor logo, the anchor, and it says Sailor Japan on it. The pen is hollow. The body of the dip nib, I should say. And then these nibs come in different sizes. They come in fine, medium, Fude. Fude is a curved or upturned nib. This one's 40 degrees. And it also comes in a 1.0 and 2.0 millimeter, I presume, stub. The Fude and the stubs come with this reservoir, and the fine and medium do not, but you can purchase it separately. I'm going to get a grip section and remove this nib so we can take a look at it. So it's hollow from here. It has a cutout from behind, so it becomes very easy to clean out this dip nib. And then you'll see that the shape of the nib is very similar to like a lamy nib. It's not rounded, so you're not going to be able to use this in other dip nib holders, which I've tried. Then this is the reservoir. It's not a feed because it doesn't have fins. It holds ink very much like the old style dip nibs, where it just simply has this void of a reservoir to hold ink that gets used by capillary action. So you can see the cavity there is quite large, and then it has this little raised point, which actually fits right into the heart shape on the nib. So it clicks in, and then this flat area corresponds with the flat area on the housing. There we go. I was trying to insert it the wrong way. Okay. So now it's realigned and clicked in to be used. Now I'll show you a writing sample, or excuse me, an ink sample, ink swatch of this bright fig. Here it is. And you can see on the low saturation areas, it's purple here. And then the high saturated areas are a very vibrant green sheen. And then it seems to me in the middled areas, it's like a purple trying to come through, but it has this cast lighter green sheen over it. So it looks more of like a muddled purple. So that is the swatch. And then I did a chromatography strip on it also. And that's how it turned out, which was surprising. It's like pink, and then a bright blue on the edges there. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a writing sample, and then I'll talk to you a little bit more about the details about this system. but I think everyone's just eager to see how it works at first. So we're gonna dip this in just to the heart shape cutout and wipe off the excess on the rim. Those are the directions. And based off the angle that you hold your nib, correlating to that 40-degree upturn, will determine how broad or fine your writing angle is. So, starting this way, working my way up and reverse, and also depending on how you hold the nib holder. So the farther back gives you the flattest. Move forward a little bit, forward a little bit. I find that this gives me the best control, and reverse. I'll give it another dip. And I've just gotten this, so I could definitely use more practice, but the Fude nib is kind of to imitate Japanese brush strokes. So you see that with the right effect, you can go very broad to very fine, and it does have that brush-like effect. And this would work really nicely with sketching, I suppose, too. So let's write in all caps. And then lowercase. And let's try some cursive. So there's a writing sample of it. So a little bit more information in general about this system. As I understand it, the Hocoro refers to the dip nib and dip nib holder. Dipton refers to this entire system, meaning the system that Sailor has created of this sheening ink and the dip pen that partners with it. And they provided really good instructions on how they're to be used together, and it seems like they're definitely meant to be used together exclusively. So Fude means an upturned nib. So that's referring to the nib, of course, that is upturned, and it is to mimic the stroke of the traditional Japanese calligraphy brush. And this is a 40-degree upturn. Dipton derives from the action of dipping, and so dip and then ton, and that is a vocal imitation for the sound that is made when you dip your nib and you rub it against the glass rim, like on the way out, to brush off the excess. Hocoro is derived from Hocoro bu, meaning the bud opens. Imagery of colorful flowers blooming from the pen tip. And also face will be fluttering, laughing, referring to the opening of the pen as a laughing mouth. So they have kind of a whole little connection and story with the meaning of this. Now, the Dipton sets, including these inks, there are 3 shimmer inks. So there's Mellow Forest, which is a green. There's Coral Humming, which is a coral color. And then there's Ice Dance, which is blue. And then those have come out previously. Now we have this new sheening set. There's 3 of those also. So there's Dark Cave, which is teal ink with a pink sheen. Ripe Fig, which is this one. So that's a purple ink with a green sheen. And there's also Blue Flame, which is blue ink with a red sheen. And as I've mentioned previously, these dip portions, just this alone, you can buy separately. Fine and medium without a reservoir, which you can buy separately. Then the Fude and the 1 millimeter and 2 millimeter, which come with the reservoir. And these are 20 milliliter vials of ink. And the way Sailor describes this ink is ink with 2 faces, colors that emit sharp light appearing everywhere. So you can definitely see where they get that impression. A metal-like shine of a color different from the ink color appears in the area where ink accumulates, a flash. Sheen, glossy. So definitely seeing that. Where the high saturation pulling areas are, that is where we definitely get the most sheen. And it did take quite a bit of time on this ink swatch where it's very highly saturated to dry. So they call this a dip pen for calligraphy. And the thickness of the line changes depending on the writing angle, giving it strength or fineness. And I talked about holding the pen at different angles and at different parts of the barrel, so moving your hand back enables various strokes, bold to fine, adding freedom to your writing and drawing. I found I had much better comfort and control changing my hand position on the barrel compared to changing my hand positioning as to where I was writing. So try them both out and see what works best for you. Now, when I was writing with this, I dipped the nib in to the heart cutout as recommended and did my ton, so wiping off the excess ink on the rim. And this is as far as I could write, and you could see here is where the ink ran out. And what they are talking about is this ink is meant exclusively for this Sailor dip pen. They don't recommend using it in other dip pens, and they don't recommend using it in fountain pens. Not recommend. It's not meant to be. So more strongly. And there's some interesting information. It says Sheen inks tend to clump and harden more quickly. Therefore, after each use, be sure to thoroughly wipe off any ink that has gotten on the bottle rim, and of course on your section, cleaning it every time. I definitely noticed that it dried faster, and it has more of like a residue texture to it than normal ink does. So I've definitely so far been very aware that when I'm done and capping this, to wipe it off with a damp cloth to remove excess ink, because it's saying that it can dry and harden the cap on, which would not be good. And if it does that to the bottle, imagine what it would do to a pen. It says do not use dip pens other than those manufactured by Sailor Pen. When dipping the nib into the ink, adjust the desired amount depending on usage. For a standard amount of ink, dip nib into the bottle to just above the heart hole. When nib is dipped into the ink that has pulled at the back of the nib, the ink has pulled at the back of the nib, so I showed you where the reservoir is. Also, there's often a bead of ink that can accumulate right here, so be aware of that. Because it did say too, with impact, that will flick. So I was noticing when I was doing some of the more quick, rapid movements with the flicks of the pen, that if there's quite a bit of ink accumulated here or here, a drop of it will flick out. So I think the point is that if you're going to be doing some of those movements, they're only recommending to fill it to the breather hole, wipe off the excess on the rim, and then there won't be so much that of an issue. Now, on my second writing portion here, I dipped it in further, and instead of wiping off the excess on the rim, I simply tilted the pen backward to allow that excess ink to seep back into the reservoir. Now, it did not come out this end or go into the barrel. It just was within this cavity that I have showed you, because you're not supposed to put ink anywhere back here. So that's the other thing. So when I did that, it of course wrote wetter, longer, and there was tons of ink. I mean, I was like shaking the ink out. It was so much. But you do have to be careful that if you're doing any of those rapid movements or flicking with your Fude nib, that's when you're going to have ink kind of dripping out. So that cavity, that reservoir, it really does hold quite a substantial amount of ink. So that's a little bit more extended intro to this system, and check them out if you're into the Fude. I think this has definitely been a nice way to try a Fude nib, and I'm interested in getting a grind. I don't know if it's a grind technically, it's more of a bending, but a customization to a nib in the future, like a gold nib, to have this Fude, because I'm finding it a very pleasing experience to write with. There is a decent amount of feedback. I'd say in general the nib is smooth, but there is some feedback certainly, both on the underneath of the Fude and especially on the reverse, because it is so fine. But I love that they customized it so that you can write on the reverse. And I in fact forgot to show you guys that, the reverse writing. So let me show you. So this is what I was saying. I dip it and then I can tilt it backwards to allow that ink to go further into the reservoir. So I'll just do it right here. So you can probably hear a little bit of that feedback. I'd say if you have a light hand, it's not bad at all. I probably wouldn't be very inclined to write like a whole page with this though. It's not that smooth. And this is what I was saying about the ink reservoir. See if you, and that's just to the breather hole. When I did it in further and I tilted it back, tons of ink was shaking out. So I think it's definitely a fun pen to play with. So have fun with it, check them out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.